Hello, this video offers an introduction to the history and secondary school major. Before I introduce the major itself, I need to say a little bit about myself. I'm Dr. Franklin Rausch. I'm an associate professor of history. Now, one thing that makes your professors different from, say, your teachers in high school and middle school is that we're expected to do research. So we're expected to publish, for example, books or articles on our specialties. So my research is often in East Asia, particularly Korea. I've published on Korean religious history. I do a lot on Christianity in Korea, as well as the themes of religion and violence in East Asia and in Korea particularly. You're most likely, though, to encounter me in terms of teaching. For my upper level classes, like 300 level classes, I teach East Asian history. I teach like modern Japan, modern China, modern Korea. I teach courses on religion, like world Christianity from 1500. I also teach a religion warfare class. A lot of that stuff is kind of depressing. So as a way to kind of, do something that's a little bit more cheerful, I teach courses sometimes on popular culture in East Asia. For example, I teach a class on comics and anime and manga and animation. But there's a good chance that you know me from the world history classes I teach. And that's a class that secondary school certification people are required to take. And that's why I usually am their advisors when they become sophomores. Right? So your freshman year here at Lander, usually if you're a secondary school certification major, you take History 121 and 122. That's the first and second half of world history. And then during that time, you have a freshman advisor. After you're a freshman, as you move into your sophomore year, I become your advisor. And it may just make sense, right? I just spent a year getting to know you. You know me. Hopefully you're comfortable coming to ask questions. So that's how that works, and that's why I'm the one making this video, because later on you're going to go on to me, and there's some things I want you to know about the major, so you'll know how to kind of deal with it in a critical way, so you'll understand, just have an idea of what needs to be done, what's important. So one thing you may sometimes hear Lander professors, your advisor, refer to is something called a catalog. So basically every year Lander issues a catalog. This is the 2021 catalog, in which we talk about all the different majors we have and what's required to get those majors. And for most students, so if you were just a straight history major without the secondary school certification thing, you follow this catalog your whole time at Lander. So if you come in as a freshman in 2021, you meet the requirements in that catalog, you graduate with a degree in history. You're always on the catalog that you enter under if you're in that kind of situation. If you're just a straight history major, you enter 2021 undergraduate catalog, you follow those requirements. Even if it's 22-23, you're still at Lander, you still follow the same requirements, unless you decide to change for some reason, and that is sometimes allowed. Here's what's special for you. As a history secondary school certification major, you're always on the most current catalog. So in 2020 to 2021, you're on that catalog. But next year, you'll be on the 2021 to 2022 catalog, right? It changes for you every year. And you may say, well, that's kind of unfair. You can change the rules on me in the middle of the major. And I'm like, yeah, that could be kind of unfair. But here's the problem. If the government says, well, we want all people who want to teach history to take a certain class, and we're not going to certify people who don't take that class, we have to make sure that you take that class. Right? They can add requirements. They can take away requirements too. So the key thing is, this is why it's always important for you to talk to your advisor, because your catalog could change every year. Sometimes it stays the same, even though the year changes. But it's very important that you talk to your advisor. It's very key that you keep your advisor updated and that you let your advisor update you so that you'll know when there's changes. Now, if you open up the catalog and you would go to the page for the secondary social studies teacher, the Bachelor of Science in History, you would see this page. And this just goes through and lists all the courses you want to take. So if you want to know what courses will I have to take as part of this major, you go to the catalog and you look at it. And it also provides some information. So for example, you'll see there's asterisks here by English 101 and 102, also by Pols 101 and Psychology 101. And if you look at the next page, there's also double asterisks here by Education 203. Those tell you what courses have a certain requirement for that class to count. right? You have to earn at least a C in Education 223 General Pedagogy. You have to learn at least a B in Field Experience 2, or it doesn't count. You would have to retake it, right? You'd have to retake it. So that's just something to keep in mind. So the program requirement sheet lists all this information, all the courses you'll have to take. This can change, like I said, every year for you, so it's important you talk to your advisor, but it gives you an idea of what you need to take. Now, what's really cool is that Lander has major guides, and basically what these do is they show you what courses you would normally need to take every semester in order to graduate in 4 years. So they're pretty cool. They give you an idea of what you need to do. And if you were to look up major guide on the Lander University website, you'd come to a page that looks like this. If you hit the plus sign over history, it'll open it up and you'll see the different majors. Boom, there's secondary school certification. If you were to open it up, you would see something like this. Right? This is what you would see. So this tells you, the first semester of your freshman year, first semester, these are the courses you might take. Second semester, freshman year, here's some more courses. Second year, first semester, and so on. Some of these classes you can move around. You don't have to take Math 211 in the fall of your freshman year. Don't panic if you're not enrolled in Math 211. We just had to put it somewhere just to give you an idea of what you would need to do to graduate in 4 years. Now, it's normal to take History 121 and History 122 for that first year. It's normal to take English 101 and 102. But if you exempted out of that, you'd be in something else. Now, other courses, typically you take at other courses are a little bit more strict. So, for example, History 201. Freshmen don't take that. Typically, you should usually be a sophomore to take it. And we usually only offer it in the fall. So you couldn't take it in the spring. So you take it here in the fall. And that's why it's so important to talk to your advisor, because this is just a single sheet. It's just meant to give people guidelines. It's not meant to be very detailed and confusing. It's just to be simple. So that's why it's important to talk to your advisor, because I would explain this to you just kind of like I'm explaining it now. So don't panic if you're not in exactly these courses. This is just to give you a sense of what your career might look like. And your advisor will help you to know what courses are hard and fixed, that you have to take them at a particular time. Another thing you should talk to your advisor about, if you have AP dual enrollment or transfer credits that you don't think are being recognized, like, so for example, if you're being put in a course that seems very similar to a course that you took at Piedmont Tech or that you took an AP exam on, talk to your advisor, let them know. In addition, if you're interested in a particular minor, let your advisor know. If you're not sure, if you want to stay History Secondary School certification, let your advisor know. You may say, you know what, I really like History Secondary School certification, but I also liked chemistry, and I'm thinking about being a chemistry teacher, and I'm not sure which to do. You tell me that, I'll be happy to try and figure out courses that will help you figure out which one you want to do, and that will minimize any possible delays to graduation. You just let us know. In any case, if you ever have a question, please do talk to your advisor. Do let us know. We want to help you, and we don't want you to be in courses that you don't need. Now, I want to just go briefly over what your hopefully 4 years. We hope to get you out in 4 years. I love our students, but after 4 years, I don't want to see them on campus anymore unless they're visiting and tell us about how great their life is after graduation. But based on the 4-year guide I just talked about, I've kind of made like a list of what you can expect for your first 4 years, or what I hope are your only 4 years rather at Lander, unless you come back for a master's or something. So you have your general education requirements, usually your freshman year. That's like your English 101, your math classes, things like that. Usually your history surveys, definitely History 121 and 122, maybe 100-level history classes in U.S. history. Then you've got your social studies classes. These are the social sciences, things like Sociology 101 and Psychology 101. Those are courses you might teach one day as a high school teacher. So those are important to know. And you really want to be aware of grade requirements. So remember, for example, Sociology 101 and Psychology 101, you need C's at least, right? You got to have at least a C. So you want to always be aware of those grade requirements. Remember, you need like you need a 2.75 GPA. So you don't want to be getting C's, you want to be getting A's and B's. Occasionally you can get a C, unless it's a course that requires a B, but you generally want to be shooting for A's and B's. A big part of your freshman year is just learning how college works. It's just completely different from from high school and middle school in many ways. You have a lot more freedom, but you also have more responsibility. So college at first, I think, seems really easy the first few weeks, and then the projects start coming in and people get overwhelmed. The There's probably going to be some time you'll need to take a couple classes over summer for various reasons. You can go ahead and start thinking about it at this point. But what you want to do when you come in to see your advisor to talk in the spring about what you're going to take in the fall of your sophomore year, right? So it's spring here in your freshman year. You go to talk to your advisor about what you're going to take in the fall of your sophomore year. You would also talk about what you might take over the summer during that time period. Usually we advise both at the same time. If you're not interested in taking any summer classes, it makes things really easy. So your sophomore year, you'll take History 201 in the fall, likely. There's a chance sometimes we might offer it in the spring, but generally that's taught in the fall. And I'm not going to talk a whole lot about this, but I do want to stress, in my opinion, that is your hardest course in university because it's such a big jump from 100 level history to 200 level history. In 100 level history, it's kind of like you have a teacher teaching you stuff, you learn the stuff, you put it down on a test, you do well. But History 201, you're going to be writing a bunch of papers, you're going to do a book review, you're going to be studying historiography, which is like the history of history. It's not easy because it's a skills-based class with lots of reading and writing. So do take that into account that your fall of your sophomore year is pretty difficult. I think it's sometimes the most difficult semester. You'll start also taking like 200 level education classes like Education 204, which is like a technology in the classroom, Education 223, which is pedagogy, Education 203, which is very important. I'll talk more about that momentarily. You'll also keep taking general education classes. The spring of your sophomore year, you might take some 300 level history classes. Those are the bread and butter of the history major. They're fun, I think. That's when you do, history of Japan. One professor teaches a class about the year 1968 because it's a very important year. What's also really important about the sophomore year is screening. So in order to take 300 level education classes, which is required to graduate, of course, you need to screen. You need to pass screening. What do you need to pass screening? You need to have a GPA of at least 2.75. You need to pass or exempt Praxis Core. You need to register or have already taken Education 203. Those are the three things you need to do. I'm going to go through them now and give you a little bit more detail. But you need to have at least a GPA of 2.75, right? It's important that people who are going to be in the classroom teaching students are able to actually be good students and do well in the classroom. So like I said, you want to be getting A's and B's. An occasional C, you get a C in a lab science. Those are not easy. Nothing against the sciences. Science is awesome. But maybe that's your C. Not a big deal, but you're going to need to get a couple B's to balance it out. So you just want to be very aware of that GPA. Be very, very aware of it. You need to also pass or exempt Praxis Core. That's a test on reading, writing, and math. If you're not sure whether you exempted it or not, please let me know, and I'll be happy to help you determine whether or not you exempted it. Certain SAT and ACT scores exempt it or exempt portions of it. If you did not pass or exempt it, I would recommend that you prepare for it in the spring of your freshman year and try and take it over the summer between your freshman and sophomore years. That way you can really just concentrate on it. But you do need to take it and pass it at some point. That's very important. They sell ETS, the service that performs these tests. They sell books on it. They sell a practice test you can take. And I've been told that sometimes the praxis questions actually appear on the real test. So it's not bad to invest in that. And what's cool is if you take the praxis test and you miss a question, it actually tells you what you need to study. So I highly recommend investing in that before you take the test. But you do want to make sure that you either pass or exempt Praxis Core. You don't want to wait, till your spring of your sophomore year. You may not have time to do it and get the results to us in time, and that might cause a delay in graduation, right? Because you can't start taking those 300 level education classes until you successfully screen. And then you need to either register for or have taken Education 203. So it's fine to take it in the spring of your sophomore year. You just need to be registered for it. What is 203? It's an interesting class. It's only 0.5 credits, and it's a classroom observation class. So basically, you would be going into like a high school and just watching a class. So we want to make sure that people really understand what it is to be a teacher. That's why that's required for screening. It should be an easy A, but there are certain aspects that you need to follow. There are certain deadlines you need to follow. You need to be very professional when you go into a high school classroom. You never want to be late. You want to be very strict about that. But that's something that you need to do as well. Now with COVID-19, the ever-changing situation, I don't know what will happen with these things. We will just revisit those when you become my advisees. But there will be something, we'll have some way to make sure people meet these requirements before we let them continue on. And I should point out, you can be removed from this program if your GPA is low or if you don't meet these requirements. So your junior year is kind of interesting because it's actually, I think, the easiest year. Your freshman year, you're getting used to being a college student. Your sophomore year, you're taking History 201 and taking harder classes. But your junior year, it's kind of more of the same. So it's fairly sedate. Now, if you were going to do study abroad, normally I'd say you do it in the fall of your junior year. So if that's something you're interested in, usually this is when you would do it. But one thing I want to stress, right, with COVID-19, we don't know how that's going to work, but it's just something to keep in mind. Usually you're going to take more 300 level history classes balanced with gen ed classes. Then you're going to start taking your 300 level education classes like Education 329, which is more classroom observation. It's pretty simple. Your senior year is where things get really tough. This is an extraordinarily busy year. Why? In the fall, you're going to take History 451, which is basically a course on how to make a lesson plan. Making a lesson plan is very difficult. You have to design an activity, and you have to show how that activity meets certain learning objectives set by the state and teachers associations. So it's not easy. It's very difficult. It's very time consuming, but it's absolutely necessary, right? You have to be able to make a lesson plan to be a teacher. In addition, you would also take History 499, which is a course in which you do original research and write a paper and present it to a panel of faculty members. So, for example, when I teach that course and we all rotate it, I teach on Korean history. And if you're going to take, you would do a research project on Korean history. It's pretty cool because you write your own paper based on your own research, but it's very time consuming. So usually you're going to have to take that your fall of your senior year. So I recommend that when you're a rising senior, that summer between your junior and senior year, you figure out who's going to be teaching that course and you talk to them about a possible topic. You get that done and you start working over the summer. That can make your life a lot easier over the fall. Now you might ask yourself, well, why is it that I'm required to take these two very difficult classes at the same time? The answer is simple, because in the spring, you're going to be focused on student teaching. And you can't really take courses when you're student teaching. That is going to consume your life. So that's why your senior year is hard. You got these really two difficult classes in the fall, and then you have student teaching. At the same time, you want to be careful that you're completing everything for graduation. And one thing I should point out, by this time, I'm no longer your advisor. I'm your advisor your sophomore year. Once you successfully screen, which should happen at the end of your sophomore year, you move to Dr. Ryan Floyd, who's head of the secondary social studies program. So some things to think about as you progress through this. Be the student you want to teach, right? Be the student you want to teach. One thing, it's weird when I have people who want to be teachers who I have to get on about using their phone in class. So I have to remind to be on time for class, who are doing poor work. You absolutely positively have to be on time if you're going to be a teacher. And it's going to drive you nuts when people are not going to pay attention. Cell phones will drive you nuts because the people who are going to be using their cell phones are usually the people who are not doing well in class and then complain or have their parents complain because they're not doing well in class. And it's obviously the teacher's fault instead of their child who won't pay attention. Right? You will run into things like this, unfortunately. So whenever you do something, always think, am I being the kind of student I would want to teach? Because if you're late, if you're using your cell phone, if you're not studying hard, if you're not working hard, you really don't have a way of criticizing students when you become a teacher, if you become a teacher, who are doing those same things. Right? It's kind of hypocritical if you tell people to be on time when you yourself cannot be on time. Be aware of the impression you give. There's things called dispositions. If you are rude, if you use bad language, if you do things that are not fitting for a teacher to do, you can be kicked out of the teaching program. And if you don't go that far, you have to think, okay, am I giving the impression of the kind of person that people would entrust their children to? So Dr. Floyd and I, we do a lot with this program. We have children who are school age, who are being taught. And one question we always ask is, would I be comfortable with this student teaching my children? If I'm not comfortable, okay, what do I need to do to help this student become the kind of student I'd be comfortable with them teaching my children? So you want to always get that impression. I'm the kind of person that you can trust your children to. And that's a big deal. And that's why being a teacher is a big deal. It's very important that you learn how to balance school, work, and life. It takes time to get the grades you need. Even if you're smart, you still have to invest time. And it's often the case that I have students who are smart, but because they overcommit to various school organizations, student organizations, because they overcommit to work, they don't get the grades they need to complete this major successfully. And what's really heartbreaking is when I'll have students who will enroll in summer classes and then try and work a bunch so that they end up failing the summer class because they worked too much, in which case they got an F and they lost the money that they spent on the class for that F, right? That's the worst of both worlds. It would have been better if they just would have studied and not worked, or if they just would have worked and not studied. So it's very important you get this right. The bad news first about this major is it's hard. It's very hard. The good news, though, is that we basically have like a 100% employment rate. For anyone who successfully completes the program and who still wants to be a teacher after completing the program, they have gotten jobs. Usually they get their jobs before they graduate. So usually the spring of their senior year, they've already been offered a job, and they have that confidence as they walk across the stage and get their diploma, they've got a job lined up, which is awesome. So know yourself, make sure this is where you want to be, and be realistic about what you can do. And always, always stay in touch with your advisor. Let us know. We're here to help you. If you're not sure what you should be doing, let us know. And just remember, being a teacher is awesome. I hope you get to do it.